I think one of the hardest lessons I have learned in my life to date is to rest. And I know that sounds so simple, but in a world built on hustle culture and burnout and working long hours and saving no time for yourself, I think there's a reason it's hard to learn to rest. I feel like at a young age, we were taught by example that there is no rest. There is only work and work more, work until you're burned out, and you might be able to pay all your bills. I don't know about you, but I came from not the wealthiest family. And growing up, it was quite difficult. We often had just enough to get by. But even then, sometimes it was a little iffy, not the best. And that was really hard. I saw in my parents that the only way to make it by was to work to the point of exhaustion, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, sometimes just really, really long days and working on your own thing in the evening and never having enough time, while also simultaneously never having quite enough to make sure everything got covered. And from a young age, seeing that, knowing and understanding that that was the reality around me, that's how I viewed the world. As I got older, I did that myself. I lost my dad in high school and I didn't want to think. I didn't want to have time with my brain. And while I didn't throw myself into work, I threw myself into school. I would do 2 to 3 courses per semester on top of a full day of school. That was a lot. Where I grew up in Ontario, you would have 4 courses a semester. I would take 6. And I did that for a year and a half. And the last little bit of grade 12 where I didn't do that, I was volunteering 30 hours a week on top of school at a local benefit thrift store. And I didn't give myself time to be with my head. I didn't give myself time to be with my thoughts. And, you know, growing up, I learned that was just kind of what you did sometimes. As I got older, this pattern continued, and this pattern continued in how I showed up for work, how I was expected to show up for work. There were times in my life where I was juggling 3 jobs at once, maybe sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and not giving myself time to do the things I wanted to do. Not even giving myself time to even know what it was I wanted to do, if we're being real. And honestly, I really think that this contributed to this pattern of working, hitting burnout, trying to work through the burnout, and then having a mental breakdown to the point where I couldn't even show up to my job. And then not working, barely making ends meet, oftentimes going into debt just so I could pay my bills, so I could get by. And when that didn't work anymore, I would force myself to go back to work. And for years, I'm talking over a decade, that was my pattern. That was my routine. There was never enough. I'm still paying off the debt of bad mental health choices. And it's not even that they were bad mental health choices, it was that there weren't any choices, and my mental health was bad. It was in a really crappy place. And I think for a lot of my life, I expected that would be what life was. And in realizing and understanding that I wanted to build a business, and I wanted to build a business not built on burnout, not built on forcing myself to work when I didn't have the capacity. Rest became a pivotal point. Rest became extremely important. And over the last year and a half, I focused a lot on that. I focused on learning to rest when I need it. And a lot of times it isn't easy. It's gotten easier. I'm a lot better at it now. But one of the things I had to learn within that was that It's not really rest if I'm sitting there and beating myself up about the things that I'm not doing. It's not what rest is. That's kind of just anxiety spiraling. Honestly, that's what it felt like. I had to learn to build myself days, sometimes just half days, where I could sit and be with myself and not put pressure on myself to show up. And I think part of why that is hard is because now I actually enjoy what I do. I like making these videos, but I haven't filmed a video in 10 days, aside from the one I did before filming this one. But that's a completely other story. um, Lost my train of thought there. Oh, yeah, rest. But now I give myself that rest when I need it. I allow myself to be okay with not doing things. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect at it. I'm still learning, I'm still practicing. Nobody's ever perfect at anything. But giving myself permission to rest, permission to not feel guilty when I rest, that's a big one. It allows the rest to actually be restful. Um, One thing I like to say is that brains are stupid. As smart and complicated and sophisticated as they are, they're stupid. They believe what you tell them. If you're having reoccurring thoughts, your brain can't distinguish the difference between it being a thought or a memory and it actually happening. So this can show up in a lot of ways, but say you had an argument with a friend. We'll just use this as an example because I like examples. Say you had an argument with your friend. That argument happened a week ago, but while you were in that argument, your body felt tense, you felt anxious, you felt stressed, you felt annoyed, you felt frustrated, whatever, angry, whatever emotions you had them and you were feeling them physically. And maybe afterwards you were tired because, well, it's pretty draining, right? And if you had that argument, even if you made up afterwards, and you stopped thinking about it, your body would stop living through it. But if, say, a week's passed and you're still thinking about it, you're still cycling through those anxious thoughts and thinking about the things you should have said or the things you didn't say or how angry you felt in the moment, whatever the emotion, your body can't distinguish you just thinking about that argument and what it was like to actually live it the week past. And it's really tiring on your body. The same thing goes for self thoughts. If you're taking that time to rest, that you're like, okay, I'm going to rest. I'm not going to do anything for an hour. I'm going to have this time and rest. And instead of doing things to keep you in the present moment, that might be art, that might just be reading a book, that might be sitting outside and listening to the birds, which I'm trying to do more myself. But if you are instead sitting there and for that whole hour you're resting, you are beating yourself up. You're thinking, I should be doing this. I can be doing this. I need to be doing this. Why am I just sitting here? This is lazy. This is stupid. I shouldn't be here. I should be doing things. It's not rest. There is a reason that hour of rest afterwards, where you were just sitting there beating yourself up for the full hour, didn't leave you feeling any more rested. But if instead you took that hour, you were gentle with yourself, it doesn't mean those thoughts might not be there, but you can self-correct. I'll explain how to do that in a second here. But if you take the time and actually rest, you're gonna feel rested after that hour. It might not be perfect. You might not have all the energy in the world, but that little bit of time for yourself really does make a difference. I'm grateful to be in an opportunity where if I don't have that capacity, I will take the day to feel rested. I feel lucky that I get to do that. I know I don't have a day job, where I have to show up every day, and I don't have kids, which also take up a lot of energy, but you can still play with them. You can still enjoy the time and rest. Sorry. If you take that time to rest, you will feel more rested afterwards. I feel like this might have gotten slightly off track, slightly distracted, slight tangenty there. But part of what I do when I try to show up here is not edit these videos, because I guess in a way, cycle this back to the rest. It allows me to have that rest for myself. It's also improved my public speaking, which is a bonus. But for me, taking 3 hours to edit this video or publishing it, even if it's not perfect, I would rather have those spare hours for myself to rest than to make the video perfect. Because that's also who I am. I don't want to show some filtered version of myself. Some days they're easy, some days they're hard days. And both of those things are equally okay. Now, if you're in that place where you are still beating yourself up when you are trying to rest, I get it. It is not easy. And that was my habit and my pattern for years. Because let's face it, the mental health's never been great. We talked about childhood and stuff in the beginning of this video, and the people around me never took the time to rest. So why would I take the time to rest? But if you find yourself beating yourself up over the thoughts you're having, or, I want to be resting, why am I being anxious? This is stupid. Like, I need to just go do something. You can gently correct yourself. And you can do this whatever way works for you. But for me, if I have that thought, I like to say, stop. Bringing in some DBT skills here. Stop immediately that thought. I am learning to rest, and it is okay to rest, and I need to rest. And the more you say that, every time you're trying to rest and have that intrusive thought of you have better things you should be doing, the more you will start to believe it. Back to the brains are stupid. They believe what you tell them. And the more you say, I guess, things like affirmations, or the more you're gentle with yourself, the more you are kind to yourself, the more you're going to build that habit and routine, and your brain will feel like it's normal. It will feel less stressed to rest because that's enough, like a way of reacting to rest too. Like for me, it was stressful, and that wasn't fun. That's not rest to me. Rest is being able to relax and unwind and just breathe easy for a little bit. And I think no matter where you are in life, it is important to learn this skill, whether you're 75 or whether you're 15. Learning that it is okay to rest when you need to rest, it lifts a weight off your shoulder. It lifts pressure. And that doesn't mean there aren't still things to do, but there will always be more things to do. You have a definitive set amount of time in your day. There are only 24 hours. And the to-do list is also infinite if you let it. There will always be more things to do, but there will not always be time to rest, if that makes sense. There's time to rest if you make time to rest. But if you never allow yourself to have that time will never be there. It can always be filled up with something else. But learning to prioritize that, even if it's 20 minutes to start off with. If an hour is too much, I get it. I don't think I could have always rested for an hour myself. And I think there's also an important lesson here for parents who don't allow themselves to rest either. Your kids learn more than just the words you say. They see the actions you take. They see the way you respond to everything. If you, as a parent, are not giving yourself time to rest because there's always something more important, that's a lesson your kids will also absorb, whether you mean for them to or not. If you always have more important things to do than rest, they will learn that rest shouldn't be a priority for them either. And this comes both from someone who nannied and worked with many kids for many years, but also from someone who had two parents who, growing up, they didn't rest. They worked constantly. My dad would work overnight shifts and then come home, sleep for 3 hours, and then go work some more. My mom also didn't give herself time to rest either, especially when she was an entrepreneur and really in the early stages of her business. And for me, I want to build a business that allows me to rest. That is a goal I have, because not being able to rest is what leads to burnout. It, for me at least, is what leads to spiraling and mental breakdowns. And I don't want that to be my life. I don't want that to be the lessons my future kids take. I want them to know that they can build something that works with their energy, not against it. They're allowed to rest, that they can listen to what their body tells them they need. So, what are you going to do next time you try and rest a little? Are you going to read? Are you going to sit outside? Are you going to paint? Are you going to listen to the birds? Are you going to go blow some bubbles and let your inner child be free? Just think about it. See what happens if you allow yourself to rest just that little more. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that you are here. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.